Welcome to The Critique. Today we're looking at a political panel transcript about a broadcaster's legal threats, Iran's nuclear strategy, and Naftali Bennett's recent campaigning. Let's get right to it. Okay, so a key theme here in the opening is this attempt to ground a really heated political issue in, objective legal theory. But it kind of stumbles right at the finish line.
It really does.
The segment introduces mens rea and actus reus, criminal intent versus the act. But it dilutes its own authority by mixing in political speculation way too quickly.
That is the core friction point, isn't it? The speaker starts off with this fascinating, almost ironclad legal definition. They take Eyal Berkovich's statement that he won't stop his car, and they just dissect it perfectly.
Right.
They explain that saying, "I won't stop," completely removes the defense of an accident. It establishes premeditation. I mean, that's a brilliant hook. It takes this chaotic media moment and just imposes order on it.
It does.
But then, almost in the same breath, before that legal cement has even dried, the text pivots to, well, what if this was the other side? What if these were Kaplan protesters?
Exactly. By rushing to that double standard argument, the speaker shifts the listener from, learning the law to just hearing an opinion. It completely undermines the weight of the legal critique they just built.
Yeah, you have this golden opportunity to be the adult in the room, the legal scholar. But by immediately jumping to what if the sides were reversed, you're sort of lowering yourself back into the political mud fight. The weakness is just a lack of patience.
It is. They're trading long-term credibility for a short-term rhetorical point.
I think so.
So, okay, how do we strengthen this? The suggestion is pretty simple. Separate the legal dissection from the socio-political commentary. Establish that unassailable credibility first.
That makes sense. And building on that, what if we looked at it from the perspective of a prosecutor? Like, here's a concrete way to fix this.
Okay.
Conclude the legal thought experiment entirely. Don't just say it's criminal intent. Explain exactly what charges a prosecutor could bring based only on that admission. You could quote the relevant statutes. Say something like, this admission transforms a potential accident into aggravated assault or maybe even attempted grievous bodily harm. Make the listener feel the weight of the handcuffs before you even mention political bias.
I love that. And to add another concrete example for the transition itself, only after that legal case is completely closed should the speaker bring up the double standard.
Right.
Use a specific transition, something like, now that we've established beyond a shadow of a doubt that this statement is a criminal threat, now let's look at why the media's reaction is so telling.
That's the key distinction. It changes the speaker from just another partisan complainer into a legal expert who happens to have a political take. It's subtle, but it changes the entire authority of the segment.
Absolutely. You have to earn the right to make the political point. Okay, let's look at the next section, the part about learning from provocateur. The use of the Talmudic story about Rabbi Meir. It's a brilliant intellectual anchor, but it really risks confusing the audience if its application isn't made crystal clear.
It's a fascinating reference, but it's a high-wire act, right?
For sure.
So the text uses this metaphor, I found a pomegranate, ate its inside, and threw away its peel, to explain why it's okay to learn from a provocateur like Mordecai David. But I have to ask, is that connection fully established, or is there room to bolster it?
The weakness here is ambiguity. The speaker moves so fast. They call Mordecai David a bandit, a provocateur, but then immediately use this very high-level Talmudic defense.
Right.
So is the speaker saying Mordecai David is the sinner we should learn from? Or is the act of provocation the peel we discard? It assumes a really high cultural literacy from the audience.
Exactly. It's intellectually rich, but is it accessible? You risk the listener getting lost in the metaphor, thinking, wait, are we praising this guy? Is blocking roads the fruit or the peel? If they have to pause to decipher the theology, you've lost all momentum.
So the suggestion is just slow down. Explicitly map the source text to the current event so the lesson is accessible to everyone. Don't just drop the quote and run.
Yeah, and here's a concrete way to do that. After citing Rabbi Meir, the speaker should just state very plainly, in this case, Mordecai David's provocative behavior, that is the peel. We reject it. We throw it away. But the truth he exposed about hypocrisy, that's the fruit. We consume that. You have to connect the dots for them.
That clarifies it immensely. It removes all the guesswork. And, you could even ground it more. Contrast this highbrow reference with the gritty reality.
Okay, how so?
Acknowledge the tension. Say something like, it might seem strange to quote the sages while talking about a guy blocking traffic, but the principle holds. It shows we're not living in an ivory tower. It makes the analogy more relatable.
That's a great way to handle it. It turns a show-off moment into a genuine teaching moment. It shows the speaker can walk in both worlds, the world of text and the world of the street.
Okay, now let's zoom out a bit to the broader structure. A major theme here is pacing. The transition from domestic squabbles to the geopolitical crisis with Iran, it creates this jarring whiplash effect.
Talk about a hard turn. I mean, 1 minute we are deep in the weeds of Eyal Berkovich, road rage, local protests. It's emotional, it's petty, it's very...
street level.
Right. And then, boom, we're suddenly talking about the Iranian foreign minister and Donald Trump's grand strategy. It feels like changing the channel on the TV without warning. It's so disorienting.
The weakness is there's no connective tissue. The listener is still processing a local celebrity feud, and now they have to pivot to nuclear proliferation. It makes the whole thing feel like a salad of topics, not a curated analysis.
And it devalues the Iran segment, doesn't it? It feels like just another item on a laundry list, not an existential threat. It's like putting a comic strip next to an obituary. The tone is just all wrong.
So the suggestion is to create a thematic bridge that links the micro, the domestic unrest, to the macro, the external threats. You have to hold the listener's hand as you jump across that chasm.
That makes total sense. And you could do it in a couple of ways. Here's a concrete example using the theme of distraction.
Okay.
The speaker could just say, while we are here fighting over roadblocks and dissecting comments by sports broadcasters, our enemies are using this time to their advantage. Let's look at Iran's delay tactic. That one sentence justifies everything.
That's a powerful bridge. It says, the first segment was the noise. Now let's talk about the signal. Or here's another way, focusing on leadership, which the text actually mentions.
Oh, interesting.
You could say, we see chaos in the streets, but when we look at the prime minister's desk, the challenge is exponentially higher. We're arguing about traffic, while our leadership is juggling 7 fronts. It ties both segments together under the banner of governance.
I love that. It takes the salad and turns it into a meal. It connects the ingredients. It creates a narrative arc where there wasn't one before. It transforms the show from a list of complaints into a comprehensive world.
Precisely. Okay, let's get to the final section, the critique of Naftali Bennett's campaign in Bnei Brak. The material makes a strong point, but it relies way too much on emotive language, on insults, and it misses a chance for a really sharp strategic takedown.
Yeah, this is where the text gets a bit spicy.
A little bit.
The speaker calls Bennett's campaign pathetic. Asks, what are you doing there? It's very high energy, but is it persuasive to anyone who doesn't already agree?
That's the question.
The weakness is it lacks analytical depth. It frames Bennett's presence as just sad or annoying, rather than analyzing why it is strategically flawed. It feels like venting more than critique.
And the reliance on the word hate. The hate camp. It just becomes repetitive. It's an emotional argument, not an intellectual one. When you just insult someone, you let them dismiss you. But when you dismantle their strategy, they have nowhere to hide.
So, the suggestion is to replace the general insults with specific evidence of strategic contradiction. Don't just tell me he's bad, show me he's wrong.
Let's get concrete. How do we do that?
Okay, so instead of just asking, what are you doing there, analyze the demographics. The speaker mentions he's taking votes from Lapid and Gantz. Elaborate on. Say, Bennett is campaigning in Bnei Brak, a sector that feels betrayed by his last coalition. Strategically, this is a misallocation of resources because 90% of Bnei Brak voters prioritize sectoral loyalty over his vague unity message. He isn't just annoying, he is mathematically illiterate about his own target audience.
That hits so much harder than pathetic. It frames his failure as incompetence, not just malice. And there was an anecdote at the very end of the text that was excellent, but totally underutilized.
The one about the neighbor?
Yes, where the speaker tells the woman complaining about Bibi to convince your own kid first because her son doesn't follow her politics.
That was such a powerful moment. So human. It cut right through the jargon.
It was. So my concrete example is center that story. Don't leave it as a throwaway line. Use that as the core of the argument. Frame Bennett's failure not as a personal one, but as a failure to read the next generation.
I see that.
You could say, Bennett is trying to sell yesterday's politic, but as my neighbor found out, you can't even sell that to your own children anymore. The split is generational. That elevates the critique from Bennett is sad to Bennett is obsolete.
That is brilliant. It takes a personal story and weaponizes it into a sociological observation. It's so much more devastating than just calling name. It proves the point through narrative.
And it fits the speaker's profile perfectly, valuing those cultural touchstones. It just wraps everything up on a note of insight, not anger.
You know, looking back at all these points, the legal structure, the pomegranate analogy, the Iran transition, the Bennett critique, there's a common thread, isn't there?
I think so.
The material has all the right ingredients. The legal knowledge is there. The cultural literacy, the geopolitical awareness, it's all there. It's just about the arrangement.
Exactly. It's about architecture, building a structure that can support the weight of these arguments. You have the bricks, you just need to lay them in a straight line so the wall doesn't fall over.
And that's what's so exciting about this piece. The speaker has the expertise part down cold. The challenge and the opportunity is just to slow down enough to let the audience catch up and to build those bridges between topics.
Well said. It's about respecting the listener enough to guide them, not just drag them along. So, to recap the main actionable points for our listener today. First, separate your legal definitions from your political rhetoric. Build your authority as an expert first, and then pivot to the political implications. Second, when you use complex metaphors, like the pomegranate, map them explicitly. Tell us who is the fruit and who is the peel. Don't make us guess. Third, build thematic bridges between domestic gossip and geopolitical threats. Use themes like distraction or leadership to prevent that tonal whiplash. And finally, substantiate political attacks with strategic analysis, not just insults. Use that powerful anecdote about the neighbor to prove the generational divide. We encourage you to refine the flow and logic of this transcript. Take these suggestions, reorder your arguments, build those bridges, and submit the next iteration for review. We'd love to see how this piece evolves. That's all for this edition of The Critique. Keep writing, keep refining, and we'll see you next time.